in real life, in order
In
to...
real life. This is like this is like such a typical Gen Z phrase. In real life. I mean, we aren't even talking with each other in real life. This is an online. This is an online platform. I had to mention this. Sorry.
Whenever experience, no.
In real life. Continue how you started.
Hello. Today we're gonna talk about the Gen Z's lack of happiness despite the increasing comfort in Western society. The point of our podcast is that we have too much comfort and that takes away our happiness.
Should we first start with how each of us defines comfort?
Well, the basics of comfort are having a house, a safe place of work. That's the basics.
I would say family.
Yeah, it gives a sense of social security. And also really a sense of belonging.
Yes.
So family, house, workplace, food, there are different levels of comfort, and today we have easy access to so many things that we can basically achieve the highest level of primitive comfort. As I said, with chocolate, for example. Before there was so much chocolate factories, before we had an easy access to chocolate was given mostly at Christmas, for example. It had value, which it lost when it became a mass product.
Yeah, I remember my father talking about New Year's. He was celebrating New Year's with his family. He and all his siblings got one huge package of chocolates and sweets, and this was only once a year. He had the opportunity to eat something sweet. The meaning kinda went away, but that's not only with chocolate, but many other things as well.
Family is something very, very important, and it provides us with meaning and happiness, right? It also creates a sense of very necessary comfort. Like the issue with family nowadays, and this happened since the millennial generation, because that was a generation when parents started both working, and they tried raising kids that way. And the millennial generation really created a very inexperienced generation. That has many reasons, but one of them is that parents, on average, didn't have much time to spend with their kids. They come home, they're exhausted, and they still have to put in a few hours with their family as a simple rule of being in a social environment. But they really couldn't have this, typical parent time. When your dad takes you somewhere special and tells you, "Hey, kid, this is how this works." You always read that in stories, but you don't have that often in our generation.
I think a big problem about all this unhappiness, back in the day of our parents, their competition was the people around them. Your neighbor that lives 3 houses away was the tallest. He was 180. Now, because you have access to internet and everyone is connected, you actually know that the tallest guy is 2 meters something, which again completely destroys the competition you had in your surroundings. A healthy competition where it's not like you see something that is completely unachievable. There are like 2 types of games, like 2 types of competition. There's one game where the enemies are winning slightly. They are still within your reach, and you're still motivated to play the game, to focus, and to actually do something. And that's fair competition. Then even if you lose by a hair's length, you still tried the whole game. But then there are like competition where your opponents are so far ahead. Like it's, the enemies have 20 kills and you have 0. It just doesn't feel like winnable anymore. You don't even try anymore. For example, when you compete with your friend who has better grades in math, but only by like 1 grade. Like if I want to, I can be as good as him. But let's say he was 5 grades better than me. There's no way I can catch up to you.
Equality of opportunity is what we actually want. But the thing is, that's such a big lie, because some people literally get to skip the part of moral law. Like some people literally get to skip the part of don't be evil. I remember Google had their own rules of conduct, and one of them was don't be evil. They just removed it. It's like we're playing a different game here.
Yeah, that's actually what I was talking about with my family yesterday, that while you ponder if some action would be moral, how would it affect the world, how would it affect other people, the other one who has no morals or just doesn't care about them, he acts disregarding absolutely all regulations or moral codes. He walks on the heads of people to his own personal success.
Every time you go on WhatsApp and you see these jacked guys or these beautiful women, like you have these women 1 in 10,000. Normally, the most beautiful women in your city was, I don't know, Sarah, which had blue eyes and blonde hair, but her nose was a little bit curvy. Now you see these people, you start to compete with them, but you shouldn't. And that's what makes you unhappy.
I would partially agree to this because if we talk about athletes, you can somewhat try to admire them and set not themselves as a goal, but see this as a possibility that if you work hard, you can get like this. But sometimes it also gets to this point that creates just an unproductive envy sometimes. Because you know, for example, that you can't be like Schwarzenegger, you can't achieve you can't be like this because you either lack time or lack will or you're just not interested. That reminds me of statues and depictions of antique gods. I mean, even if you look at the statues of Apollo, he isn't ripped. He is still human. He is still in the reachable borders, so to say. What we have now is basically these new gods and goddesses all around the beauty contest, the Mr. Olympia contest, and they set such a high standard that for most of people it just feels and is unreachable.
When we didn't have standards so globalized, there was a sense of imperfection everywhere. And that made it kind of more human, kind of more natural, kind of more presentable. And I've heard a philosopher called Slavoj Žižek. He was asked about dating, and he said,
you cannot ever fall in love with a perfect person. There must be some tiny, small, disturbing element, and it is only through noticing this element that you say, but in spite of that imperfection, I love him or her. This is why a funny story. They made in Europe, not in the United States, some decades ago when the two big modeling stars were Claudia Schiffer and Cindy Crawford. They made in France, I think, a big opinion poll like, whom would you prefer to live with? Cindy Crawford won. You know why? Because of that birth. Doesn't she have a small mole here, whatever birthmark?
Like, that makes you really ask, what are we exactly creating for ourselves? We're creating a very plasticky world. We're creating a too perfect world for ourselves, right? And it's kind of, because, the heroes that we have, the people that we know in our lives who constitute something we admire, right? But we still read some things about them that are imperfect, and that makes them more like us. It makes, like, when you look at your father, it's like this great man who did all of this for you, but then, you see him chilling on the couch watching some TV. It's like, yes, there is still something human about him that makes him like you. And we've kind of lost that. We're creating our own demise with this.
Maybe it's the problem that today's Gen Z doesn't try to make themselves better, but try to be the man who is better than them. They try to be the person who is better than them and not improving themselves to their limits.
That was a really good point.
They also try to act like they achieved something. When you look on Instagram, all this show that's happening on the surface level, I don't think these influencers, not all of them are leading these happy lives, but somehow Gen Z is representing themselves as being very confident in what they say and do, even though behind the scenes, it's not all about, living in the Palm Beaches and driving jets and stuff. We know there's a lot of stress and pressure behind those people, but you don't get to see that. Our final thought is We need to go back to monkey.
Yes.
I think we need to transcend monkey. I think we. I think we can.